You're watching Your Turn. If it matters to you, it's important to us.
For the past 2 weeks, as you know, Israel has been pounding targets in Gaza, saying it is defending itself against a constant barrage of rocket attacks from the Islamic group Hamas. Today, a meeting in Egypt of Israeli and Egyptian officials trying to negotiate a ceasefire. Why has this tiny strip of land suddenly exploded into an international incident? What do you think about Israel's strategy? They're getting a lot of pressure from around the world to change it. And does it signal a step backwards in the road to peace? Email your opinions about this conversation to yourturn@WTVT.com. Your Turn at WTVT.com. We'll read some of your comments on the air today. Joining us today, Dr. Thomas Smith, a professor of political science at USF St. Petersburg. Samar Jarrah, she is the author of Arab Voices Speak to American Hearts and a journalist who covered Jordan for CNN's World Report. And Jonathan Ellis with the Tampa Jewish Community Relations Council. We're going to be joined by phone also today by Kara Dunham, hopefully in just a moment when we get that connection up. She's running a mission over there in the Palestinian territory and is in the middle of all this, and we hope to get a first-person perspective there as soon as we make that connection. So let's start with why Hamas is lobbing these rockets into Israel, because that's really how all this started, or the current issue.
I think the whole thing started really long time ago. Half of the population of Gaza are refugees who were refugees in 1948, and then until this day, the core issue of the problem there, which is occupation versus people who want self-determination, has never been solved. So this is a larger than just today they were lobbing rockets. What really happened is that when Israel unilaterally withdrew from Gaza, there was never any kind of an agreement with the local people to see, okay, what's going to happen. So Gaza ended up being a big prison. Then something happened in January 2006. The wrong people, in our point of view, meaning the USA and some other places in the region, when the people of Gaza elected Hamas, not really because they like it, and we had a show on that before, if you remember, Kathy, it's simply because they had no alternative. They were fed up with the PLO. Hamas in 2006 was never given the chance to fail or to succeed. Immediately, every power that be, whether the USA, Israel, or the Palestinian Authority, or some Arab regimes, worked in order to make it get defeated. Then
So let me ask you something. You have often said that you believe that the two-state solution is possible, and you believe peace is possible, and that's what you work toward. So do you think Hamas has been doing the right thing by lobbing these rockets into Israel all this time?
Absolutely not. I am totally against it, but I am also against an occupation and subjecting 1.5 million people to become collateral damage and collective punishment. I am an evil person. Let's say I'm a terrorist and I took you all hostage. Does this justify the government to drop a bomb here and kill all of you in order to get me? That's what is happening in Gaza.
Jonathan Ellis, was Israel correct in its response? Did it have the right to defend itself this way?
I think there's no question that a government actually has not only a responsibility but a duty to take those actions that are necessary to defend its people. If a government's not going to defend its people, there's no real sense to have a government at all. That's the primary responsibility of the government. And Israel has to react at some point in response to these rockets that are coming in, and you wind up having an escalation of the rockets that are coming in. Now, there was never, I think, a real cessation of rockets. You had a continual rockets, but not at the level you did immediately preceding the action in Gaza. When you wound up at a certain level of rockets, Israel had no choice. And then the question becomes, what's the goal of responding? Is the goal to punish 1.5 million people? And I think the answer to that is no. That's not the goal, and that's not the stated goal. The stated goal is, in essence, to stop the rockets from being fired, and that's where it becomes a more difficult issue of what do you have to do to stop the rockets from being fired, to stop the rearming so you stop additional rockets coming in, because it does no good to stop the rockets from coming in, only to have it happen again in 3 months or 6 months if you reach an immediate truce. So I think,
Dr. Smith, in the bigger picture here, was the election of Hamas a step in the direction of, okay, the ceasefire wasn't giving the Palestinians what they wanted, let's step up the violence and do something more, try a different solution?
You know,
Is that what's happened here?
If you think of from the perspective of Hamas, they look at what's happening on the West Bank, where in Ramallah you have basically the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, and the Fatah wing of basically the Palestinian movement, which has taken, over the past several years, has taken an increasingly nonviolent approach. The level of suicide bombings has dropped dramatically in Israel over the past 3 or 4 years. But Hamas looks at Mahmoud Abbas, who is sort of the Bush administration's best hope for Palestinians and who's worked closely with the U.S. And Hamas says, what has this gotten Fatah? What has this gotten Mahmoud Abbas? And the answer is not very much.
Really?
There have been some prisoner releases. There have been some extension of authority over local conditions. But in terms of settlements on the West Bank, they have continued. You know, there's been no sort of dramatic shift in between relations between Palestinians in the West Bank and Israel. So Hamas, you know, this is the leverage that they have, and I think that explains some of the response.
I think one of the problems with that is that immediately subsequent to the elections, you wound up having really sort of a split voice of the entire Palestinian population, where you wind up having Hamas speaking with one voice, who, with all due respect, you know, has a stated goal for the destruction of Israel and is not, you know, recognized as a terrorist, organization, not only by the United States but by the European Union and others. And then you have Abbas in the West Bank, and it's hard to try to get some type of comprehensive agreement when you're not even really sure who Abbas is fully speaking for, and whatever agreement you reach with Abbas, is this something that's going to be recognized in Gaza? And even on the West Bank, what support fully are you able to negotiate with Abbas? And that's what creates, I mean, a lot of this problem.
I agree with 2 points that John made, that really Israel has the right to stop the rockets from being launched on it. But do you do it by fostering the power of Hamas, by sympathizing not only the Palestinians to become all of them Hamas, but you have seen the riots all over the Arab world and all over Europe. So you are doing a double-edged sword. You're trying to finish off something you know very clearly it cannot be ended, because the core issue is occupation. People have the right for self-determination, and any person who is occupied, just like Patrick Henry, he said, give me liberty or give me death. That's the right. That's a human right. That's a part of international law.
Right,
but the other point really that he made...
Make it quickly, because I got to take a break.
Take the break.
All right. It's hard to make it quickly. All right, we have Karen Dunham by phone from Jerusalem, and she's been living through this, and we want to hear what she has to say about the mood there, the tone, and what people are feeling, and we'll be right back.
Reports, but good strategic prayer matters. The families that we are sitting with, they're losing. I mean, like one lady in our church, 5 of her family were killed in Gaza. And so we're able to comfort the Palestinians in our ministry outreaches in our cities. What they've told us is that Hamas is trading aid, food, to the families in recruiting the young people to come in and be sharpshooters. So they're taking the kids, even Fatah families, where it would be a Fatah family. The young boys are being recruited to go shoot for Hamas, to become a shooter for Hamas in return for aid to their families. And we know that there's been like 500 trucks of humanitarian aid sent in. We just really, we sit with the families. I mean, we are just really, we're grieving with the families.
Karen, is there any dissatisfaction among the Palestinians you're talking to with the way Hamas has been handling this?
No, because they told me the Hamas is in the basements. They're hidden inside the people. And we just, I mean, we grieve that, you know, a good shepherd isn't going to hide inside the people. And if they really love their people, they would come out away from the people. But the families say that they're hidden inside of the buildings. They're inside where the people are. And so their greatest fear is it's going to spread throughout the West Bank.
Yes.
So we've been going steadily into the West Bank cities to sit with the people, to pray with the people, and to try to comfort the people.
All right.
But they really are, they're like a sheep without a shepherd.
Okay. Okay, I appreciate that, Karen. I don't know if you're able to stay with us, but I appreciate your point of view. So stay with us if you will. Put the map back up, if you will, just so people will have a frame of reference of what we're talking about here. And as you can see in Israel, the West Bank up there, what Karen was talking about, is where